Welcome everyone to another video, and in this video we are going to be taking a look at the brand new Silpharina Cup. This is also the same meta that we applied for regionals, so you'll have your weighted tournament, your 10x weighted tournament, and other tournaments that are not 10x weighted that will fall under this meta, and then as well the regionals, another 10x tournament. But more importantly, if you win regionals or place in the top X, depending on how many people are participating in your regionals, then you'll have the opportunity you'll be invited to season two continental championships, in addition with the battle tower winners and whatever world ranking cutoff that they'll apply. I'm not sure how that worked, but pretty interesting. So this meta is very important for your ranking. If you care about Silpharina meta ranking, if you really want to perform well, this is your time to shine. This put in season one. This put a lot of battlers on the map. This catapulted Valor to the spotlight. This catapulted Caleb Peng, in addition to so many other regional winners. And so this is a big deal. A lot of people are going to be competing. It's only the best of the best that get invited to regionals. So the competition is going to be tough. Every single round that you're going to have to do will be challenging. So you definitely want to pay attention and check out all the appropriate resources and all that good stuff. But anyways, let's talk about the Voyager Cup. So it's going to be held April 1st to April 30th. Note that your Toxic Cup tournaments are going to be extended till April 30th as well. I still haven't done mine. I'm not sure when I'll do it. Lot's been going on in my life, so we'll still see when that happens. So basically, this graphic here says pick any use each region to build your team of 6. Pick any one Kanto Pokemon, any one Johto Pokemon, pick any one Hoenn Pokemon, pick any one Sinnoh Pokemon, and then pick any Unova, Alola, or Galar Pokemon, and then a wild card pick that excludes a bunch of different Pokemon. It basically excludes all like the really OP meta-defining Pokemon like Altaria, Azumarill, Bastiodon, Cresselia, Defense Deoxys, Dugong, etc., etc. So if you want to pick those up, you're gonna have to pick them up in your not restricted, in your regional picks. So quite interesting. Basically, it's open Great League with like a limit on how many Pokemon you can select per region. So pretty interesting. Obviously, first thing that comes to mind is Azumarill Registeel Core. Going to be pretty dominant, right? And Azumarill, I believe, is Johto, and then Registeel is Hoenn. So those might be lock picks in terms of those regions. So you need to think about as you construct your team. So again, as we talked about, here are some of the wild card picks. Cannot be one of the following: Ivysaur, Venusaur, Hypno, Lapras, Dugong, Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is interesting. Mew, Azumarill, Skarmory, Umbreon. Obviously, they're doing this by region. Registeel, Altaria, Defense Deoxys, Swampert, Tropius, Medicham, Gardevoir, and Wishcash. Man, Hoenn is absolutely loaded. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't realize how crazy Hoenn is. And then we see Bastiodon, Probopass, Cresselia, Togekiss. That's decent. And then the 3 regions will include Zweilous, Scrafty, Malmetal, Alolan Marowak, Jellicent, and Mandibuzz, depending on when those and if those will get released. With everything that's happening, I'm not so sure. And as well, no duplicates, pick 6, declare shadows, all that good stuff. And then yeah, those are pretty much the rules. For regionals, you have 72 hours as of Saturday, which is March 21st. So you have until March 24th to declare which regionals you'll be participating. It's all remote, so obviously just compete in your local one, if quote unquote local one, if the time does fit your schedule. So, but anyways, let's go to pvpoke.com. If we go to rankings and then we click on Voyager, we'll see some of the top picks, and this looks very similar to the Open Great League meta. Basically, it's the exact same thing as the Open Great League meta, except for it highlights all the restricted picks. So stuff that you cannot pick in your wildcard spot. You have to pick in your regionals. So if we pick, let's take out the limited picks and then see what you could potentially consider as your wild card. I think a very early favorite for a wild card is gonna be Meganium. Meganium is gonna be able to beat both Azumarill and Registeel. So I think that's gonna be very important as your wildcard pick, or at least something to consider. Is that you need to be able to beat that core. If you cannot beat that core, then basically you're gonna have to. It's basically gonna be a rock paper scissors match where you're gonna have to line up your counters perfectly. Versus if you have Meganium, you're gonna have a little bit more flexibility on when you're gonna be facing Azumarill or Registeel, knowing that you can beat both. Obviously, the Azumarill matchup is way more convincing than the Registeel one. Having to land Earthquake does make it a little bit more difficult, but it is definitely a pretty good match. Another one to consider. Well, this is like a little bit more exposure, but Rain Cashford is able to beat Registeel and Azumarill. The only thing is that it beats both of them, but it's at like very low HP. Versus Meganium can come out of the Azumarill matchup with enough HP to potentially get off an Earthquake or land another Frenzy Plant. And that's not something that Rainy Castboard can necessarily do against the core picks. Machamp is there. Like, you want something to check the steel types, but we're gonna have to evaluate. And Game Press, definitely check them out. Has this really nice graphic, which we'll be taking a look at right now. So as you can see here, they have the various slots and then the various categories. So they have this meta simplified that says, obviously, Azumarill. I expect Azumarill, just like in Season 1 regionals and like in any open meta, to be one of the most common picks. Azumarill just really tanky, has really great moveset, has good typing. So it's just going to be, it's very difficult to replace. It's very unique in its role. But Azumarill, start off with Azumarill. Azumarill gets beat by the grass, beats the flyers, so beats like Skarmory, beats Altaria, etc. She doesn't really beat Tropius, so I'm not really sure. Anyways, and then the flyers beat the fighting types. Obviously, there's exceptions to anything, but they beat them for the most part. And the fighting types beat the steel types. Steel types also beat the grass and the flyers, and then ground also beats the steel types. Azumarill would also beat the fighting types. I think there's like, depends if you count like Defense Deoxys has some counterplay, and then Azumarill for the most part beats the ground types, except for like certain ground types, like if it was like a ground grass, like I'm not sure those would be very common in this particular cup. But anyways, so in your slot 1, you have to pick something from Generation 1. These are all the various options. Obviously, Venusaur always looks great. Lapras could look really strong. If you have Legacy Dugong, those are also good. But you need to factor and consider how they balance with the rest of your team. I think those are probably the ones that I would consider. Maybe even Hypno. Depends. Hypno has like really good generalist play as well. Your slot 2, it's very hard not to pick Azumarill for your Generation 2. And kudos to anyone that does win their regionals with no Azumarill, because Azumarill is such a good safe switch. Like, it has excellent coverage. Yeah, it's just like a really great Pokemon overall. So it'd be pretty tough in this Generation 2 slot, like, to pick anything else. Like, Umbreon is interesting as well. Really good generous, but loses to Azumarill. Loses to Fighters, but does win basically every other matchup in neutral scenarios. It basically outbulks every other Pokemon, and that Snarl generates energy super quickly, allowing you off a lot of Foul Plays or Last Resort, depending on what move you're trying to execute. We also have Skarmory here. I don't expect people to pick Skarmory over Azumarill. I think there's a lot of replacements for Skarmory, potentially a lot of them that are in the wild card slot. And then Generation 3 is absolutely stacked. Like, Gardevoir, a potential option. Tropius, a lot of people like Shiftry for its spamminess. Altaria, Registeel. Oh my gosh, Jesus. Swampert, Wishcash, Mudboy, the dominant Mudboys. Um, and then we also have Defense Deoxys and Medicham. Those are all the restricted picks, the ones that you can't pick. So I think picking the slot 3 is both pretty obvious and not obvious in the sense that like Registeel is I would say Registeel and Azumarill are the two best Open Great League Pokemon. They're very flexible, but um, Swampert, Wishcash are very tempting as well. They're very dominant Pokemon that both counter Registeel and then have some play against Azumarill for the most part losing, but it's not like Azumarill dominates them. And then also you have Defense Deoxys and Medicham. I'm not sure I would necessarily select them. I think a lot of people like Toxicrow as a counter user for its ability to counterplay Azumarill pretty effectively. You just need to land one Mud Bomb Bay, and then you can double Sludge Bomb in the 2 shield. So it has counterplays outside the 0 shield against Azumarill. So something to look at. Registeel is probably a lock. Man, Altaria is also a really amazing Pokemon, but loses to Azumarill. And then Tropius, one of the best grass types, but I think you end up picking Meganium as your flex spot for the most part. I think is probably the right play. Anyways, under slot number 4, so you have restricted picks: Togekiss, Bastiodon, Probopass. You also have Cresselia. Cresselia able to beat Azumarill, able to handle a lot of neutral matchups really well because of its bulk and a pretty good moveset. But I think that slot is a little bit more difficult. Like I think you either pick up Toxicrow if you haven't picked up a fighter in your wildcard spot or otherwise. I think Toxicrow's a really solid pick, able to beat Registeel and Azumarill, and then as well has a really great play against Meganium. Obviously going to lose some other fighters, or not other fighters. Can lose to Defense Deoxys and Medicham, but still has decent play against them. So I think that slot, there's not like I'll also be very hesitant to pick Bastiodon and Propass because very likely people are going to run Hydro Pump on their Azumarill, which plays very well against Probopass and Bastiodon, and as well they both lose to Registeel, so it's not really a great tank option. I'd rather go like Lantern as like a supplement, like split the anti-flyer roll, just because I don't think like a lot of people are going to select Altaria over Registeel. So then Lantern has really good counterplay against a lot of the flyers. So it's something to consider, and as well has good play against Azumarill, and then has decent play against Registeel. So I think that's something to look into. And then in slot number 5, you have some restricted picks in Mandibuzz, which we have no idea how that's necessarily going to play out. But Mandibuzz probably doesn't have great matchups against Azumarill. But the thing is, most people are probably going to run Ice Beam, Hydro Pump. Maybe if they run Play Rough, obviously it's going to deal super effective damage. In addition to Ice Beam also dealing super effective damage. Zweilous, Alolan Marowak. I think Alolan Marowak is also really good. Malmetal, Jellicent could be pretty dangerous. Scrafty, I would definitely not sleep on Scrafty. Scrafty's pretty solid matchups against the ghost types are very notable, and fellow dark types. And then in terms of slot 6, obviously those are wildcard picks. They talk about example teams here: Venusaur, Azumarill, Registeel, Toxicrow, Alolan Marowak, and Quagsire. So Quagsire instead of the other Mudboys. But you can see most of these teams include that team right there is very meta team. That's a very I'd be very comfortable running that team today. I think it's very solid. Then Haunter, Azumarill, Registeel, Gallade, Seismitoad if you want to have I guess one Seismitoad versus Quagsire. I guess if you want Earth Power instead of Earthquake, yeah, a little bit more spammier. I think Quagsire has more bulk to it, and then Shiftry as your grass, and then we see Poliwrath, Azumarill, no Registeel, picking Tropius over it, picking Probopass, basically picking Poliwrath as your fighter. It's like very poor matchups against grass types. Um, but I don't know. It doesn't necessarily beat the other water types despite having the water typing. And then Alolan Muck, and then Alolan Raichu as the restricted pick. And then we have Blastoise. Yeah, this is a spicy pick. I'm not sure. Sure would run this team. Blastoise, Skarmory, Defense Deoxys, Bastiodon, Zweilous, and Meganium. So pretty spicy team. Not going Azumarill or Registeel, I think is pretty tough. I think if you want to play it safe, I think that's the core you build around, and then you just basically build a team that helps you protect and deter Pokemon that beat both, right? So you might pick up a flyer that can easily handle Toxicrow and Meganium, which shouldn't be too bad. But anyways, like I think that's how you kind of construct your team. So we talk about fairy types, grass types, anti-grass types, anti-flying, and then anti-steel, and then dark and psychic, which I'm not 100% sure you need. That's kind of like outside the current core of the meta. But I think Cup's going to be interesting. Let me know what teams you're thinking, what you're going to be running, when your regionals is. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone compete, and hopefully not everyone, of course everyone can't do well, but I hope those that are watching and everyone that's participating has a lot of fun and really enjoys it. And yeah, I think this is a very exciting time, and this cup looks absolutely amazing. There's going to be, hopefully the meta is not stale and people venture out and pick some really good Pokemon and really good team composition. So anyways, I'm going to leave there. If you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see everyone in the next video.